Hello to all of you who have gathered today at the Columbus Citizens Foundation. A wonderful place. Been there before many times with Joe and Shirley. And I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person today, but I'm very happy to share this message with you. And I'll try to be as brief as I can. I know that other people are going to speak because you want to hear from Joe, obviously, and from Shirley um, and so I'll try to stick to what my job is. And my job today is to tell you briefly about what this book is that I had the honor of putting together, The Albanian Quest for Freedom and the End of Yugoslavia, Honorable Joseph J. Diuguardi and the Albanian American Civic League 1985-1993, is the first in a series of books that we're going to be releasing to document the wonderful history of the tireless work that Jody Aguardi initially, along with the support of key members of the Albanian American community, later joined by Shirley Cloyce Diaguardi, have done for over 3 decades now in support of human rights for the Albanian nation in the Balkans, and especially in support of Kosovo, the newest country in Europe, which declared independence in 2008, finally. The book is about key documents, archive materials that show how important the work of the Civic League and Joe's initial work as a congressman has been to the Albanian people, a nation of some 7 million in the Balkans, divided into different countries through artificial borders, I would say. Uh, uh, Without any further ado, I'd like to start talking to you briefly about the book and what I call the key moments in the book. Now, thank you for having ordered a copy of it, and for I'm sure each one of you now has a copy in front of them. And as I speak, I'll mention some page numbers that you can open the book to and see exactly what I'm talking about. So the election of Joe to Congress in 1984, in the fall of 1984, for many in the Albanian world is considered a miracle. I call it a blessing because it seems like without that little blessing, the history of the Albanian nation and the history of Europe per se would have been probably different than what it is now. Joe has served in the United States Congress, as you know, between 1984, in the fall of 84 when he was elected, till 1989, a couple of terms there. And as soon as he kind of was sworn in, he was celebrating his 45th birthday in September of 1985, when some Albanian Americans who had supported his election to Congress were in attendance and overheard his father, Joe Sr., speak in Albanian to his younger sister. Now, that was, a big thing for the Albanian Americans, and they never stopped calling Joe's office, even going to his house in New York to ask him for support for the Albanian people in what was then Yugoslavia, a very powerful country in southeastern Europe. Um, Joe, when he learned his story about his roots, Albanian roots, he's Albanian kind of as much as he's Italian, and he's proud of his heritage, both his Italian and his Arbresh Albanian roots, and that's a wonderful thing when you share a combination of these two wonderful historic people. I would say, both Albanians and Italians have lived in good, friendly, neighborly relations for a long time. When Joe understood what the Albanian people of Kosovo were suffering under the regime of Yugoslavia, initially, a communist regime of Yugoslavia, he took it upon himself to do something that would save and help save his father's people. So in June of 1986, to be exact, June 17, 1986, Joe introduced the first ever resolution in the House of Representatives condemning the repression of ethnic Albanians by the federal government of socialist Yugoslavia at that time. This was the first time members in the US Congress were hearing about the people of Kosovo, about ethnic Albanians in Kosovo, and what they were going through under the regime of communist Yugoslavia at that time. And it was only one signatory to this resolution, and that was Representative Jody Aguirre, because nobody else knew much about what was happening in Yugoslavia, much less about the ethnic Albanians who are a majority, who were and still are a majority in Kosovo, and were being completely repressed against, discriminated against by the federal government of communist Yugoslavia at that time. He enlisted the support of a key notable senator of the time, Bob Dole, a good friend of Joe's, who then became also a good friend of the Albanian people. And so two people introduced this concurrent resolution in June of 1987. In the House, Jody Aguirre, and in the Senate, Bob Dole. However, you have this resolution in page 39, by the way. Just looking at it and the language of it, it shows how Joe had gotten a very deep and thorough understanding of what was happening in Kosovo, and it took him a year of tireless, intense work to educate and convince other members of Congress. So by July of 1987, he reintroduced the same resolution in the House and obviously in the Senate also. But now this time around, this resolution did not have just a signature to it. Indeed, Joe's efforts paid off. This resolution, just a year later, in July of 1987, and you have that in page 67 of your book, included now, apart from Joe's signature, another 56 members of Congress would sign on to it. 56 members of Congress, and I tell you what, getting 56 members of Congress to sign onto a resolution that condemns the Federal Republic of Communist Yugoslavia at the time, we're talking 1987, about the rights of the ethnic Albanian people in Kosovo, was not an easy task. But hey, we know Joe, and for those of you who know him personally, know that he's a man of hard tasks, a man of tough issues, a man that gets things done when a lot of other people would either give up or not even try at all. This is my first moment of the book. I think this is very crucial because in 1986, when he introduces the first resolution, and then 87, when he's introduced the second resolution with 56 other signatures to it, nobody else was talking about Kosovo. Not even the Democratic League of Kosovo, a national movement for independence, which was led by Kosovo's historic president, Dr. Ibrahim Rugova, was not created until 1989. That's why this is the first most important moment in the history in the history that this book tells. My second most important moment is a letter by George H.W. Bush, President Bush, to Joe, which you have in page 109. It's from September 27, 1988, in which the president says, last paragraph, and I'll quote, "It is in the U.S. interest to encourage the respect and preservation of human, political, and civil rights, and we should oppose those who would seek to stop it." Now, for those of you who have ever studied political science or have been interested in political developments, you would have heard of what's known as the Christmas warning. That was President George H.W. Bush's letter to Milosevic in 1992, came December 1992, in which he had told Milosevic that he would consider all options if Milosevic were to undertake a full-scale attack on the ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. But the roots of that Christmas warning are in this letter from September 1988. That is my second most important moment. Why? Because just a year prior, in 1987, the State Department was going crazy about Joe's resolutions in the United States House and Senate, And indeed, in a letter sent to him, which you have in page 83 and 84 of the book, the U.S. Department of State had told Joe that they were extremely unhappy with what he was doing, because what he was doing against Yugoslavia, communist Yugoslavia at that time, the Department of State considered extremely damaging to vital U.S. interests. Can you believe that? Extremely damaging to vital U.S. interests. And only 1 year later, because of Joe's lobbying in the Congress with his congressional friends and leaders and colleagues, you have the U.S. Vice President at the time, who later became the U.S. President, George H.W. Bush, saying completely the opposite in a letter to Joe, which I said is in page 109. My third most important moment for the book, which I want to draw your attention to, is the formation of the Albanian American Civic League, which happened in April of 1989. This is after Joe left Congress, but his leaving Congress did not stop him from pursuing what was right, from doing everything he could to help the suffering Albanian people in Kosovo. So, with the foundation of the Albanian American Civic League, he continued those efforts more than he was that more actually at an intensified rate than before. So, there's three key pillars through which he addressed the issue: through hearings and resolutions in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, to increase knowledge and to teach more members of Congress about what was happening, why what was happening to the Albanian people in Kosovo was damaging and a threat to the United States geopolitical and national interests in Europe. Second pillar was through letters sent to the U.S. Department of State and other key major administration officials in this period of time, and through demonstrations that he would hold in front of the White House and other important landmarks like the UN. And third, through an intensified media appearance on CNN and other major channels, Fox, you name it, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. So there was these three key areas in which the Albanian American Civic League, led by Joe now, was bringing up almost on a daily basis the importance of the Kosovo issue, the importance of the issues that the Albanians, ethnic Albanians in Kosovo, were facing at the hands of now Milosevic, who had come into power in Serbia and Yugoslavia, for that matter, in 1989. This third moment, I think, is also defined by a letter that Biden, now President Biden, then Senator Biden, sent to Joe on February 8, 1991. You have that letter on page 204 in the book. This is a letter that Biden, as a senator then, and chairman of the Subcommittee on European Affairs and the Committee Foreign Affairs of the U.S. Senate, sends to Joe, inviting him to testify at this very, very crucial, important hearing for the future of Kosovo that was happening in the Senate at that time. This is a crucial point for Biden also, because in a latest statement in 2002, when Biden was honored by the Albanian American Civic League for his efforts in supporting the righteous demands of the Albanian people of Kosovo, he himself said that it was Joe Dioguardi who had convinced him that the Albanians in Kosovo needed the American support, and that supporting the Albanians in Kosovo against the brutal regime of Slobodan Milosevic in the 1990s was the right thing to do for the United States and for the United States' national interests in Europe. Indeed, I must say that as a senator, Joe Biden worked closely with Shirley also. She was the kind of mastermind with Joe, I would add, to a lot of the things that were done after she joined the Civic League, which brings me kind of to the concluding remarks of this book. And that's that's very well written by Shirley herself in the epilogue of the book that kind of gives you a nice overview of what's to come in the couple of other books, at least, that we're going to produce in this series to document the key, most important moments of the history of the Albanian American Civic League and the unique role that Joe Dioguardi along with Shirley Cloyce Diaguardi, have played. Now, I must also say that, you know, Joe and Shirley, obviously in the Albanian world, are considered the founding fathers, if you will, for lack of a better term, of the Kosovar state, the Republic of Kosovo, the country that declared its independence in February of 2008, the country that became the beacon of democracy in that region, and a country that is still obviously struggling with things like economic development, rule of law, but nevertheless, it's a country that's free, a country where you know the highest standards of democracy and human rights are observed, and without the work that Joe and Shirley, and obviously Shirley joined him in 1994. She was a publisher when she met Joe, and when she learned about what Joe was doing with the Albanian American Civic League for the Albanian people, Shirley was drawn into it, joined Joe as the Civic League's Balkans Affairs advisor. She later married him, and I could not think of a better partner and companion for Joe than Shirley Cloyce Diaguardi. The two of them are the historic figures in the modern Albanian history, and I also should add that I am thankful, and all Albanians everywhere are thankful to Joe and Shirley for what they have done, and especially to the Albanian American Civic League, all of its board members from beginning to the current board members, and the supporters that have pitched in and supported the efforts and the work of the Civic League for many, many years. Now, pretty, 30 plus years. I am absolutely happy that you're there with Joe and Shirley. I am. I wish I could be there, as I said in the beginning, but let's hope we'll meet at some other time. But this is an important thing to celebrate, an important book to celebrate, because it demonstrates what the will of a congressman, the will of a person who perseveres and never gives up, regardless of how tough and how hard the battles are. And that kind of story, from that kind of story, we all can learn. And for Joe and for Shirley, the history will write volumes and volumes more about what they have done, about how they have done what they have done, because it meant a lot to an entire nation. Their work has not only been about Kosovo. Let's not forget, they've also done a marvelous job to bring democracy to Albania, to bring equality and civil and political rights to the Albanians and ethnic Albanians in Macedonia, Preševa Valley, Montenegro, and other parts where Albanians live. So, to the Albanian nations, these are people, Joe and Shirley, along with the Albanian American Civic League, and as I said, board of directors of the Civic League, from the beginning to those who serve now, they are held in high esteem and with utmost respect from anyone in the Albanian world. I don't want to take more of your time. Please enjoy enjoy being together with Joe and Shirley and some of the board members from our Albanian American Civic League and some other Albanian Americans who joined you. Albanians and Italians have a lot in common, and their history has a lot from which they both can learn and appreciate one another as neighbors and good nations on the face of this earth. And obviously, being American on top of that is kind of like putting the cherry on the cake. So thank you all. Enjoy being together, as I said, and let's hope I'll be able to join you in the next event at the Columbus Citizens Foundation. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.